Hello everybody, it's Kara from Wild Book Garden, and today I'm here with a spoiler-free review for Blanca y Roja by McLemore. As always, I will put all of the content warnings I can remember in the description box, so please check that out if you would like to. And as with the book review that I just filmed, this is a somewhat polarizing book, I think. I know for a lot of people this is not one of their favorite McLemore books, but this is actually one of my most favorite. And this was actually a reread for me. I have been wanting to reread more favorite books and then do reviews for them, so that is what I'm doing today. This is a magical realism story, and we are following four main characters. Two of them are sisters Blanca and Roja, and their family has a curse put on them, where every generation there will be two daughters born, and one of them is cursed to become a swan, and the other one remains human. And our two sisters of this book are determined to be the ones to break the curse. They have a really close relationship, and they don't want to lose each other. And then the other two main characters are two local boys who kind of get drawn into this, and their experiences with the magic in the wood in this novel kind of combine with this curse. Their stories get tangled up in these two sisters, and the book goes from there. This is a Snow White and Rose Red retelling that also incorporates some elements of Swan Lake, and as I said, I love this book. I know that not everyone does, and this is one of those books where there are aspects of it that I don't like, and that normally would affect my opinion on a book more, but I just love everything else so much that it doesn't matter. I find the parents kind of frustrating in this, some of their decisions. There's like a pretty serious miscommunication or misunderstood information kind of subplot that really brings a lot of the conflict of this book on these characters. The sisters, there's something crucial that the sisters don't tell each other that really does cause a lot of problems in the book, which normally that would really bother me. But yeah, I just don't care. I love this book. I recognize that there are those frustrating aspects, but I just really love everything else about this so much that it just doesn't matter. I still love this. So I'm going to get into why. For one thing, I do really love the story of this book itself, the way that McLemore blends Swan Lake with Snow White and Rose Red, and with fairy tale tropes and commentary on fairy tales, the way that the story and the retelling aspects and the themes of this novel all work together is just so wonderfully done. And then speaking of the themes, this book really talks a lot about colorism and the way that that pits women of color against each other. This book also deals with family and family relationships and birth family versus found family, and the way that people can judge each other based on who they came from. And this book also deals a lot with queer identity. Paige, one of our four main characters, is a boy, but he uses he and she pronouns throughout the book, and that is discussed with so much love and compassion and acceptance. And there's also some great discussion in this book about how people can love someone and believe them about their experiences without having experienced the specific thing themselves. Basically, you don't have to have experienced what somebody is going through, or how they feel about the world, how they interact with people, the kinds of people they're attracted to. You don't have to have that same experience in order to love someone and accept them. And I think that was a really beautiful message. And speaking of the characters, I really enjoyed them. I think Roja was probably one of my favorites, which I mentioned in my wrap-up. This reread made me realize why. I know for a lot of people, Paige was one of their favorite characters. Paige was not one of my favorite characters. I did end up liking him, but it took me a little while to warm up to him because he was so awful to Roja for part of this book. I get why, because it's supposed to show contrast with how Paige interacts with other characters, and I get that, but Roja was not really doing anything worse than some of the other characters in this book, and I just really loved Roja, so it really bothered me that Paige was not on Team Roja for 95% of this book, it felt like. But anyway, all four main characters I did really enjoy. Yearling ended up being such a surprising character for me, obviously on first read, because on reread I remembered that I enjoyed him, but I was not sure how I was going to feel about him or how his story was going to go, but I really liked the way he developed, or the way it wasn't even necessarily development, it was other characters' understanding of him developing, which I really enjoyed. I also think the romances in this book were really well done. Just the character dynamics in general I really liked. I know not everybody was super happy with the way the sister relationship was portrayed, and I get why, I totally understand why, but it didn't bother me. I definitely saw this as a sister relationship, a bond that is very deep, but that is complicated by other forces. And again, that miscommunication thing that did really bother me, but for one thing, I was loving the book, the other aspects of the book so much that it didn't bother me. And also, I think that the the things that come between Blanca and Roja in this book are supposed to be like that. Like, we're supposed to be frustrated by it because part of this book is talking about the things that can come between girls and especially women of color, and the way that like society's perceptions of them and stereotypes and like the ideals of beauty and all of that can again like pit girls of color or women of color against each other. So I think that that was intentional, even if it was sometimes frustrating to see them not get along when we know they have this really deep bond. I also always adore the writing of Anna Marie McLemore's books. I have mentioned time and time again that they are one of the few writers who do a really flowery style, very descriptive style, in a way that I really, really love, and that I don't feel obscures character development. I don't feel like it overtakes the story. I feel like Anna Marie McLemore sets the atmosphere so beautifully with their writing. And I also, something that's interesting about this book, because I did really love the setting and the atmosphere, something I think is kind of funny about that is that this arguably is more of an autumnal book, partly because I think some significant scenes take place in an apple orchard and it just kind of has that vibe, but it sort of is like a book for all seasons in a way. Like, I think the atmosphere could work for any season pretty much because we see multiple seasons take place in the book. And actually both times I think I've read this one, I have read it in the summer. So just like, it's like a seasonal book that you can read at any season, which is kind of contradictory, but I did really love the atmosphere of this one. Also, I forgot to mention this in the character section, but I absolutely adored the two grandmothers that we get in this book. Like, I just love both of them. They are such great characters. I really love their dynamics with other characters, and just like them as characters and as people. I just really, really enjoyed them. So that was a huge highlight as well. And then the last couple things is I want to like mention again a couple of specific things that I loved about this book that I mentioned in my wrap up. One of them is that apple orchard. Like, there are a couple of scenes there that are just so beautifully described. I loved that setting. I loved those scenes. I think that was just like a really great part of the book. And the other specific thing I wanted to mention again is the way, like, one of the four main characters, she gets very debilitating period pain every month, and the way that other characters respond to that, first off, I just think it was great that we acknowledged periods in a book, and the way that other characters responded to that was just so great. Like, it was acknowledging that this was an awful thing to have to go through every month, but it wasn't like the book didn't make it a bigger deal than it had to be. Like, it was just a very normal part of the book. It wasn't like stigmatized in any way, and I just think that was really cool to see. And I also mentioned in my wrap up that one of the love interests, the way they respond to this, is one of the things that really, really sold me on them as a love interest when the first time I read this book, because I just think he was just so wonderful the way he handled that. So I think those are all my thoughts for Blanca y Roja. You might also come across this listed as Blanca and Roja, but Blanca y Roja is the way that Anna Marie McLemore wrote it and intended the title to be, so that is the title that I always use. But yeah, obviously I love this book. This is like the review I just filmed. This is a book that I can definitely understand why it doesn't work for everybody, but it did really work for me. This is, like, Anna Marie McLemore is one of my favorite authors, and this is one of my favorite books that they wrote. And I obviously gave Blanca y Roja 5 stars. Okay, everybody, so that was my spoiler-free review. Please comment down below and let me know if you also enjoyed Blanca y Roja, or if you're maybe going to pick it up now. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!